Hello. First off, I suppose I should start with a bit of an explanation. I don't really like freewheeling hubs, and I'm a fairly vocal critic of them. So why am I fitting them to my Land Rover? And why don't I like them normally? Well, your normal manual freewheeling hubs that you fit to series Land Rovers like this one, they've got a couple of flaws. One's an inconvenience, and the other one is potentially a bit more serious. So what I have always found with them is simply they're never in when you really need them. If you get stuck in the mud and you need four-wheel drive, you've got to get out in the mud and switch them on. If you break a half shaft and you need front-wheel drive, you've got to get out to switch them in. And that is why I don't like them. Not because of the inconvenience, getting your boots muddy, pain in the arse though that is. The reason I don't like them is if you picture the scenario, you're pulling a trailer uphill, overrun brakes on the trailer, and you lose your rear half shaft and you come to a stop. You've got no drive because your half shaft's broke. You can't put it in four-wheel drive because your freewheeling hubs are in the free position, and you can't put the handbrake on and get out because the handbrake works on the transmission, which has got nothing to brake on because your rear half shafts are one of them's broken and your front ones are set to free on your hubs. Now if this happens, as it did to me once, in fairly busy stop-start traffic going up a fairly steep hill with a trailer on, it's not great, and that's why I don't like them. However, there is an option. They're not common, but there is an option out there, and that is what I'm going to tell you about. Here we go. Right, so the magic option is a set of these. This is a Fairey example. Fairey bought out Mayflower in the early 70s at some point. These are automatic series Land Rover freewheeling hubs. Now they're not new, but they've not really done any work. So the chap I bought them off suspected that they were new on a vehicle and removed by the initial owner and put back in their box, because they are in the box and they don't look like they've done any work. Now, although the box is Fairey, as I understand it, Fairey continued branded them MAP, Mayflower Automotive Products, until they stopped making these. And these work on a fairly clever system where the half shaft drives, I'm going to have to struggle with one hand to get these out now, drives a set of one-way bearings on a ramp. You can just make out in there, maybe there's a little spring. I'll pop these out in a second and show you properly. But what happens is when you don't need four-wheel drive, when the wheels are not being driven by the half shaft, the wheel is free to spin around the centre, and it doesn't drive any of the front drivetrain, so the prop shaft doesn't go around, your differential doesn't go around, the stuff in the front of the gearbox doesn't go around, your knuckle joints inside the swivels don't go around, and all of that saves a little bit of drag, not much but a little bit, saves a little bit of fuel, not much but a little bit. It all adds up. But when you do need four-wheel drive, when you apply torque to the drive shaft, those little rollers in there get pushed out up some ramps and engage drive to the front wheels. Now this is drive only. You get no engine braking with these, and that is the disadvantage with these. So if you do lots and lots and lots of off-roading, lots and lots of on-road heavy towing, I would probably suggest that you were either better off without front freewheeling hubs at all, or you stick with the old-fashioned manual ones. But if you, like me, do most of your work on the road in two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive is a very occasional thing, then maybe a set of these are worth hunting down. They did cost me a fortune, so don't expect to find them easily or cheaply. But yes, let's go through having a look at them properly and getting them fitted up and all working. So, how do these things work then? Well, like all the best ideas, they're actually pretty simple. So, got a dust cover and securing mounting bolts, and then inside, it's just a cast iron bush. You've got these rollers. They look like bearings. They're not bearings. They don't actually touch this inner race at all when they're not doing any work. And what you have, a little spring in here that provides some resistance to turning. This part fits on the end of the drive shaft stub, and this special nut replaces the outer lock nut on your wheel bearing, so it fits effectively fixed on the end of the stub axle. And that little nub in there locks in to the slot in the special nut. So when the Land Rover is going down the road in normal rear wheel drive mode and the front drive shafts aren't being turned by the gearbox, the end of the drive shaft is held stationary by the friction force exerted by that spring, and it's not a small amount. It takes a bit to turn it, and the outer hub simply spins outside, no physical contact whatsoever. However, as soon as you apply drive to the drive shaft, and remember the outside of this nut is being held stationary because it's on the end of the stub axle. If you look at the rollers, as soon as it starts to turn, those rollers get ramped out like a sprag clutch, and when it's inside here, they jam up against that inner race and make it turn. And as soon as the drive is taken away, you start going down a hill, they release as soon as this is going quicker than the drive shaft. It releases again. So they have a couple of benefits. Obviously, they only work when they're needed to. They only drive. It's a bit like a freewheel on a bicycle. As soon as you are in overrun situation, they let go. So they prevent transmission wind up as well, which is quite handy. However, the only wearing component, if you like, is this phosphor bronze ring in here, and that spring gets turned around inside there, and these are pretty tight because these are effectively new and unused. So if you are in four-wheel drive for prolonged periods of time and at high speeds, then that area is going to see some wear. But let's face it, even if you are doing some off-roading, you're not going to be going motorway speeds off-road. You're going to be doing a walking pace or whatever. So, and these parts are largely submerged in oil and grease from the swivels and the front axle. So wear is minimal. For somebody who does very little off-roading, very little four-wheel driving, they would be ideal. Hopefully they'd be ideal for me. But as I said earlier, I think if you were going to do a lot of off-roading, in my view, you'd be better off with no freewheeling hubs at all. But if you must have them, then you have the manual ones. You do still need to engage four-wheel drive periodically to lubricate the top swivel pin in the swivel housing, and to make sure your front prop bearings and what have you in the UJs don't seize, and that the slip joint in the prop shaft doesn't wear irregularly. But once a week for 10 minutes is more than enough, even if it's just across the car park. Anyway, that's what they look like inside. This side goes to the axle, and this side goes to the road wheel, and this bush sits in there like that and supports it. There you go. Right, let's get it fitted, shall we? Right, first job is to remove the dust cap and the original fixed driving member. So I shall just jack the front up, take the weight off the road wheel. So as we can see, there's no brake rub in there, but the wheel stops fairly quickly because it's spinning not just itself but the differential and the front prop shaft as well. Comes to a fairly sudden, well, not sudden, but it comes to a definite stop. It doesn't just drift down. So those losses are what the freewheeling hubs eliminate. You probably don't notice as much going around town as you would do if you spent a lot of time doing quicker runs and what have you. But they're not nothing. They're not huge losses, but they're not nothing. Anyway, so let's see if we can get the dust cap off. these can be a bit reluctant to let go if they've been on a while, which this one has. That's actually starting to move. And this is why the freewheeling hubs don't need any lubrication, because there's always some migration from inside the swivel housing and the axle, so it will get worse before it gets better. Next job, split pin and castle nut. We won't be keeping that. Loosen that off. Put that to one side, we'll need that. And the washer. These bolts are 3/8 BSF, so you need a 5/16 Whitworth socket to take them off. Get the bar and crack that. They're not actually done up that tight. Torque figures are quite low, about 30-32 foot-pound. But obviously, when they've been in there a long time, they can be a bit reluctant. Go. So the bar just behind the flange. Ease it off. load of gloopy old oil. Try and trap the worst of that. Discard the fibre washer with the split pin because we're not going to be using those again. And there's the sealing washer. Obviously won't be using that either. Bit of a wiper reveals the outer lock nut, which is here, which is what we're going to replace with the special one in the kit. So we ease the lock tab away from the nut, like so. And you can use the spanner itself just to tap the tag back enough that it misses. So remove the original lock nut. And again, set it to one side. I'll put a little bag together with all the bits that have come off, and they can go in the box that the hubs came in case I ever want to take them back off again. Now, wheel bearings, end float, shouldn't be disturbed. We've not touched the inner nut, we've not disturbed the lock washer. In theory, we put this on and nip it up tight. Be careful not to cross thread it because the thread's quite fine and a large diameter. But once you have tightened it back up, it is prudent to just check the wheel bearing. There should be minimal, just perceptible play on there. There we have it. So the next thing is to bend the lock washer again. Now you can reuse these 2 or 3 times. Just bend a different part of the washer onto the lock nut so that you're not using an already stressed part. Not that they're expensive, but it just saves a little bit of resources. So that's the lock nut replaced with the special one. The slot's down the bottom there. So next job. Well, the next step is to fit the inner drive member. It's a fair bit deeper than the original drive flange. But you can get into that recess with your socket. So a notch on the bottom of the nut, the spring, there we are, there we go. So new felt seal. Fiddly to get into place. This one's kind of come in half, but let me get it in there. Get it pushed all the way home. And the washer, and then the castle nut. So now at the moment you can't actually tighten this up very much because as you see the half shaft spins. Now you can get myself out of the way. You can see as the half shaft spins, it pushes the rollers out. Okay, so that's as tight as we can get that at the moment until we've put the outer part on. Now we need to put that on with new gaskets. Make sure the 2 mating faces are clean, obviously. And then tap it home. So we shouldn't have to take that off again. I'm not going to actually tighten these 2 nuts, they're just there to locate it. So now Now you will see, as we tighten this nut, the wheels start spinning the wheel that way. It stops it, you see. So let's get that. Doesn't have to be butchered up, just so that it lines up with a split pin. Right, with that tight, pop in a new split pin. Now we all have our own way of doing these things. When I fit a split pin, I only ever bend one leg, so that if I'm ever trapped in the desert in a last ditch flight of the navigator style adventure to try and get home, and I have to reuse a penny's worth of split pin, I've got at least one leg that I can use to get me out of trouble. Although I'll be honest, I've never had to, but it's just the way I do it. So anyway, right, the next step is to, here we are, is to fit the cast outer bush. It goes with a deep recess on the inside, a little bit of oil on the wearing surface, can't hurt. As we said, this will be full of gear oil before, and sludge before too much longer, but that won't hurt to get it started. And then with a nice new gasket, on goes the outer cover. These nuts, as I said, are all 3/8 BSF, and you need a 5/16 Whitworth spanner for them. Right, we did almost catch ourselves out then. Ninja edit. There is supposed to be a circlip here around the outside of the shaft to hold this inner iron bush in place. Now these are often missing apparently, and even these supposedly new old stock ones were missing them. They are 1.5" imperial circlips. You can't use a metric version. 38mm metric is the same nominal outer, to go on the outer shaft, but metric circlips of this size are significantly thicker in cross section. A metric 38mm circlip is a 1.75 millimeters thick, whereas an imperial one, the same nominal outer sizes, is 50 thou, which is 1.2 millimeters. So more than half a millimeter thinner in cross section. So a metric one would go on the would look like it would go, would be the right size, but in actual fact wouldn't sit in the machine groove. So anyway, that's that installed, and the final job is to put the dust cover cum hubcap on, and the same as the bolts that came out. These are 3/8 BSF. They're 3/8 BSF by 3 inches long. If you pick one up or a set of hubs up that are missing the bolts, obviously the odds of picking up a brand new set of these nowadays is pretty slim. So anything you're going to be getting is going to be second hand. So what are you going to be missing? Well, you're likely to be missing those circlips, some of these bolts. You'll need felt seals and gaskets. Well, they're standard Land Rover parts. The only other thing that I understand is often not taken off when people remove them is the special lock nuts. Now, without them, these aren't going to work at all. So if somebody offers you a set and they want top money for them, you've got to make sure they've got those inner lock nuts. Otherwise, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Right, so last job is to just torque these up. They need to be somewhere in the region of 30 foot-pounds, which doesn't feel very tight, but let's drop it down. And there we are, all done. Usual caveats, 50, 100 miles or so, re-torque these bolts, keep an eye out for leaks. If you have taken the dry flanges off, you will almost certainly need to top up your swivel housing oil, because it eventually migrates through into that area. And will drop down. So again, check it straight away, check it when you re-torque the covers after 50 or 100 miles or so. And that's it, automatic freewheeling hubs. So I hope that's been of interest, and if I can answer any questions, just stick them in the comments and I'll do my best to give you what little I know. All right, thank you very much.